Welcome back, everyone. Today I'm going to be shedding light on the challenges appertaining to discovering market inefficiencies as a reseller. So, what are the challenges appertaining to discovering market inefficiencies as a reseller? Without further ado, without further delay, allow me to demystify that answer to that inquiry right here, right now. Lamentably, much to my dismay, much to my consternation, much to my chagrin, much to my agony, much to my distress, and much to my grief, it is not always easy to discover market inefficiencies as a reseller. Sure, they are prevalent, sure, they are ubiquitous. However, you're not guaranteed to stumble upon them, and the merchandise that you stumble upon may not be too enticing to buy. It may not be able to sell in an expeditious manner if you attempt to sell it online via global e-commerce platforms for its market values. So, as a reseller, you want to be able to procure products that are egregiously undervalued, and you want to be able to subsequently sell them via online on global e-commerce platforms for their market values, or around their market values, if you choose to discount them by a negligible amount to entice sales. So, as per discovering market inefficiencies, if you are attending storage unit auctions, you're not guaranteed to stumble upon a market inefficiency. You are gambling with your money when you procure the merchandise from a storage unit. You cannot meticulously examine the contents of the unit prior to the auction elapsing. So, it is enigmatic as to whether or not you will reap a positive return on investment post procuring the contents of a storage unit if you partake in storage unit auctions. Market inefficiencies are not guaranteed to be discovered, even at storage unit auctions. As per traversing the rows to go to thrift stores and pawn shops, you may stumble upon market inefficiencies, but it may not warrant your time to list items online and subsequently package them and ship them out and fulfill orders if they have a low inventory turnover rate. Sure, you can stumble upon deals at thrift stores, at pawn shops, and of course at dollar stores. However, you may need to wait ample time in order to generate sales if you are selling merchandise that is obscure and unknown for its market values via online on popular global e-commerce platforms. We do not want to wait a prolonged period of time for our merchandise to sell. Our merchandise takes up valuable real estate, and it can clog our storage space. You want to be able to turn over inventory in an expeditious manner and not have anything stymie that inventory turnover rate. So, when you discover market inefficiencies as a reseller, It does not mean that you should always capitalize on procuring the merchandise for a steep discount and subsequently attempting to sell it online via popular global e-commerce platforms for its market values if you presume that it's not going to sell for a prolonged period of time. If it does not sell, there's no sales revenue to be generated, and it clutters your storage space. You do not want your storage space to be deluged with inventory that is not selling. You do not want to have to liquidate it at a loss or even break even on your inventory. You want to be able to maximize your seller surplus, generate sales revenue and profits, and generate a high sales volume. So just because you discover market inefficiency, it does not mean that you should capitalize on procuring the merchandise if you expect that it's not going to sell for months on end or years on end. You do not want to hemorrhage your money buying obscure, unknown products that there is scant customer demand for on the global market for used merchandise. So, the challenge with discovering market inefficiencies is that it can be highly time-consuming, and you may even be at a loss when you factor in all the fuel costs, all the car depreciation costs, and all the vehicular oil change costs that you incurred to be able to potentially discover market inefficiencies. If you are driving around everywhere and suddenly discover market inefficiencies, after you factor in the fuel costs, the oil change costs, the car depreciation costs, the shipping costs, the fulfillment costs, the listing fees, and the fees remitted to global e-commerce platforms that you leverage to sell your merchandise on, it may not be as profitable, it may not be as lucrative as you presumed. So do not go out of your way to try to discover market inefficiencies. To discover market inefficiencies, you may have to show up to garage sales, yard sales, estate sales in a punctual manner and before other resellers show up there. You do not want all the merchandise that is desirable and egregiously undervalued to be sold out before you get there. So there are ample challenges appertaining to discovering market inefficiencies as a reseller. It can be highly time-consuming. It can be cumbersome to do so. And you're not guaranteed to discover market inefficiencies, irrespective of whether or not you show up to certain settings before other resellers. Discovering market inefficiencies can also require you to take ample time to research where estate sales, storage unit auctions, garage sales, and yard sales are transpiring. So it's a highly time-draining process. It can be strenuous. It can be laborious. And you may need to even hire movers to help you to haul the merchandise into a truck. If you are adamant about discovering market inefficiencies as a reseller and capitalizing on them at estate sales and storage unit auctions, it can be expensive, time-consuming, fatigue-inducing, stressful. So it's not for the faint of heart to undergo. I need you to know how to ascertain the market values of the merchandise at a moment's notice so that you can ascertain if procuring the merchandise, even at a steep discount, is a warranted, vindicated, justified purchase and decision as a reseller. You do not want to buy these obscure, unknown products that you anticipate you will retain for months on end without being to sell. If you are a reseller, you do not want these obscure, unknown products with a low inventory turnover rate to clog up your finite storage space. And it can be challenging competing against ample resellers in your local market to be able to discover market inefficiencies before they do. And even if you discover seemingly lucrative market inefficiencies to capitalize on as a reseller, there's no guarantee that you will be able to yield a positive return on investment, especially if you're accruing exorbitant storage fees waiting for your merchandise to earn sales. So it can be a challenging undertaking to attempt to discover enticing, worthwhile market inefficiencies that are worth capitalizing on by procuring the merchandise for a significantly discounted price and subsequently reselling it via online on popular global e-commerce platforms for around its market values. Market inefficiencies may be cumbersome to uncover. Another seller may discover them before you. And they may not be as enticing as you would have hoped at thrift stores and pawn shops and yard sales and garage sales, especially if other sellers know the true market values of their merchandise and are only willing to offer you a negligible discount at most. And it can even be a strenuous process to capitalize on market inefficiencies if you procure the contents of storage units post partaking in storage unit auctions. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's a cumbersome job to sustain. When you are a reseller, you have to constantly replenish your merchandise, create the listings for your merchandise, provide stellar customer feedback, as well as package the merchandise, ship the merchandise out, and fulfill orders. It's far more challenging than people presume. It's time-consuming, and it can be expensive to be a reseller. You have to lay out a copious amount of money to accumulate ample products as part of your inventory to sell. And of course, you're not guaranteed any sales. And you hope that your storage fees can be offset by the profits generated from your product sales. I hope that you deem this video to be enthralling and captivating, as well as mesmerizing and riveting. Have a blissful day. Goodbye.